people say.
We take a musical journey through the career of this entertainment icon on Sinatra Serenade, Saturday afternoon at 6 on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Every sound, every note, including the bass, on this track is played by a monkey.
American Hit Radio, Wednesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
All right, having fun with Sly, with Joe, with George Lopez on Motormouth Radio. Ray Guarino, we are back. George, did you stick with us?
I am right here.
Excellent. All right, so Joe has a question for you.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, so when you roll up to the place in the morning, what's in the parking lot?
Well, it's just a small business center with a couple of warehouses. So believe it or not, there's nothing too impressive in the parking lot that I could really talk about. Every once in a while, you see a couple bikes, you see a couple of old trucks when customers roll in. There's a couple of customers that roll up, and you always tell, like I said, it's kind of a quiet little industrial center, so you could tell when someone comes up and they're rumbling the windows, around. They're like, "Oh, that must be one of our customers," because other than that, it's just your typical standard cars out there,
Gotcha.
Had a guy that came in last week, and he was really round the windows around, and it was a little bit of a different vehicle that we normally deal with, but it was a 71 El Camino, and he came up and he had, really, really beautiful paint job and really nice restoration. And he came in and wanted to talk about some suspension options for his car. But that was definitely a muscle car rolling in,
George, I don't know if this was what Joe was thinking. I know what I'm thinking. What do you roll up in the parking lot in?
Well, I got believe it or not, I bought, as my daily driver, I bought an 07 Silverado short bed single cab pickup. I bought a base model, and it's not even a Silverado. It's a what they call a WT, which
Work
stands
truck.
for work truck. Yeah.
Okay.
And gray bumpers, crank windows, and I really wanted a base short bed that I could tinker with. So, I've dropped it about, I want to say, I think it's a 4.6 drop. I have 22-inch American Racing wheels on it. I got a BF Goodrich Z-rated tires on it. I got a 15-inch bare brake cross rail solid rotors front and rear. I got the engine transmissions tuned, exhaust, and a little bit of a modern classic type look. It's dark metallic blue, and I did a couple things to it, and it's a cool cruiser,
Very cool.
But besides that, I've really been into motorcycles the last couple of years. So I got a 2015 Harley Softail Slim I've done a couple things to, and then I have a 72 Sportster, rigid tail Springer front end bobber that I, hop around with a little bit here and there.
Yeah, the bar cruiser.
Yeah, the bar cruiser, But I've had them.
Back in the day, they used the handlebars. They were called TT bars, and then the bikes kind of got the name of TT, not TT.
Yeah.
How can I say that without saying?
I think you just did.
TT.
Where's that red button?
It was they were actually motocross bars, and then the bike culture renamed the TT as Tavern to Tavern, and that's So that's where and then from that it became it's like a bar bike. That's that whole lineage, at least on the East Coast.
Yeah, the bar hopper.
And which probably came from the West Coast anyway, because that's where most of the stuff originated.
Yeah, over here, my 72's got what they call Frisco bars, and which is a really narrow, kind of tall Z bar type shaped bar on it. In California, it's legal to split lanes, so the thinner, the taller the bar is, you could split lanes in between cars a little bit easier.
So let me ask you this: do you also have a Frisco-mounted Sportster tank on that Sporty?
I do have a Sporty Peanut tank that it's not Frisco mounted. Yeah, You're right. It's not sitting on top of the spine there, but it's a nice spine. I tried putting it on there. I kind of played around with it. It didn't really suit the look I was going for, so I kind of mounted a little bit lower.
It's a look. I mean, if you obviously like you just said, a Frisco mount when the tank sits above the frame, not the tunnel doesn't cover the frame.
Exactly.
And guys would do that, especially if they had like a nice chromed engine. You want to see all that nice chrome engine work. And it was a look. I think the Oakland guys kind of came up with that one back in the early 60s. And, a lot of cool stuff. I mean, with bikes now, everything old is new again, especially out here.
Exactly.
Choppers, bobbers. Luckily, we're through the big tire phase because that really wasn't the greatest for riding. But
Sure.
But now on to cars.
I even see that stuff coming back in a few years, I bet.
Yeah. It's got to go away first before it comes back. I just saw one the other day.
Got to go away before it comes back.
But now you also drive a couple of cool cars. You have a Chevelle, a GTO, and a Ford truck, correct?
I do. I got a 61 Ford F-250. It's a long bed, but it's a 61 unibody, and it's got a Y block in it. It's kind of a project. My dad bought it a long time ago off one of his buddies, and then we've always had it around. It's got big 4-speed granny gear on it, and white rims, and it's kind of a farm truck type of thing. But you love it, and we keep it around, and then slowly, you know what? And I'll be honest with you, it's kind of also been a back burner truck because I've never been a big. I've always was a big GM guy, until I started here with Jamco now, and now that I'm with Jamco, it's like, man, I got everything at my fingertips for this truck. All the white block stuff, exhaust, brakes. All the stuff that's wrong with an old truck, right? Brakes and suspension and steering. So that's what we specialize in. So that's definitely moved up the rack. Yeah.
Well, look, if you want to offload that Chevelle or the GTO, a couple guys here you could talk to.
Yeah. Right, put a couple stamps on that thing. Send them east. Yeah.
Well, my Chevelle was my first car. I bought that when I was 16 years old. So that was my high school car. And I still have it.
And that's a 72, correct?
It's a 72 Malibu. It had some fake SS stuff on it when I was a kid, and that stuff stayed on there for a long time. And now it's just kind of a still Malibu. It hasn't really. I've never done the full SS clone thing, and I did that for a lot of years with the GMA body. So it kind of loses it's almost cooler not to be the fake super sport guy. It's almost cooler just to leave it as a Malibu or kind of a mystery and with no badges or something on it.
Exactly.
So people kind
big fan of that. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where it's at right now.
And tell us about that 66 Goat.
66 GTO is a full basket case car. It's not the first GTO I've had. I've had a couple, but it's a 1966 Montero red, black interior, 4-speed, 2-door post.
Post car.
Yes,
Okay.
It's a 389 4-barrel car. And it's, like I said, I think the total basket case. I wish it was in a different state, but as a car guy, and you get things for a good deal, you start accumulating projects, and that's what.
Oh, is that how it works?
Really?
Yeah, you start accumulating projects, and you tinker with one, tinker with one here, tinker with one there, and so the GTO is definitely probably the worst of the bunch, but it's a legit, real deal 66 GTO. I mean, you can't easily just get rid of that thing, I mean, I guess you easily can, but you don't want to.
How long have you had that car, George?
I want to say going on 10 years.
Okay. Yeah, that's what happens before you know it. You blink your eye, and
before you know it,
10 years have gone by.
Yeah.
And I've had a million cars since,
Right,
so
right.
I've had my favorite car that I probably ever had that I don't have anymore, and was my 1961 Bubble Top Impala.
Oh yeah,
So
sweet.
that was a beautiful car.
They warmed their way into your heart.
To work. Yeah.
Just on Thursday night on Plane in Traffic with Lou, the conversation came up with about a Pontiac. I said, I'd like to have I could always go for the. Oh, I know why. I got to get my thought process here because OPG now is covering some big Pontiacs, for rare stuff. And I said, the big Pontiacs are cool. I'd love to have one. Lou tells me he knows a guy with 2 early '60s Pontiacs, bubble tops.
Beautiful.
And the guy wants to sell them both off. He goes, Ray, I'll give you the number. I was like, oh yeah, tempt me. That's all I need is a car carrier from North Carolina coming in with bubble top Pontiac.
Right.
I could see me making up the spare room right now.
Those
right.
to me are. Yeah, those are some of the most beautiful cars that Pontiac were built in the early 60s, bubble top Pontiacs are gorgeous.
Like some of those Impalas. I mean, you have Hubbards. There's a couple of good Impala places out there, but the trim, and that's what I said to Tony from OPG. I said, look, I'm sure you guys aren't carrying trim and the parts that are really hard. Nobody does. But just to get mechanical stuff is good enough to get a car on the road and driving, and then you can source out the other stuff later.
Exactly. Trim. I worked at OPGI for 15 years. You know what I mean? So
right.
I know, and I was basically in charge with test fitting all their trim and new stuff. Some of the trim is really impossible to get, and those big Pontiac ones is some of the hardest stuff there is. Windshield moldings and stuff like that. But I mean, plus those cars are not only that, they're covered in trim. So.
Right.
So that's like
lot of chrome.
Windshield moldings and rocker panel moldings.
There's moldings on top of moldings,
All right,
exactly.
So let me throw this out to you now since I'm on my show and I don't have Lou on a video screen holding a stick over my head. I mentioned to those guys, I happened to mention the Pontiac vacuum gauge that sits on the console that I have in my GTO. And they both looked at me like I was bats. And they said, what? I never saw. I said, you guys never saw that?
Really?
And Tony took it. So I actually took a picture of mine yesterday. I'm going to send it out to them and say.
And it has like yellow, red. It has like colors on the gauge to tell you where your vacuum's at.
It's incremented. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was surprised that I said, well, I told Tony, I said, well, I guess OPG isn't selling parts for this. If you don't know it. But that's hey, you know what? It just goes to show we can't all know. Everybody doesn't know everything, and that's why collaborative efforts like Motor Mouth Radio, like Playing in Traffic, when you get a bunch of guys together that know different things, you get a whole nother story out the other end, and it's quite interesting, I find.
Yeah, I got about 3 or 4 of those Pontiac vacuum gauges sitting in my toolbox.
Do you?
Yeah, I've had a couple Pontiacs through the years, and a couple of them I've had the gauges as I've got rid of the cars for any other reasons. I've always kept stuff that's unique to me like that. Like, okay, I'm not going to find out all these vacuum gauges, so I'm just going to unbolt it off the bottom of the dash or off the console, and I'll just pretend the car never had it, and I stash it away. I'm a little bit of a hoarder when it comes to rare parts that they don't reproduce.
Yeah, me too, and I'm always looking for more of those. But let me ask you, I happen to have one that I picked up at a swap meet, and it's not, the Pontiac housing is a heavy cast aluminum chrome teardrop. Well, this one is in a round housing like a tack with just a stud, so it mounted under a dash.
Okay, yeah.
And when I walked up to it, I saw the vacuum gauge. I said, okay, it's a Pontiac vacuum gauge. But there was black tape under the glass where the Pontiac name would be. And I said, okay, the guy put it in his Chevy, didn't want to show a Pontiac gauge. Well, I got it home and opened it up and took the tape off, and it says Oldsmobile.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have not been able to determine what car that came off of because it was always in the accessory catalog. And I got a feeling this thing is worth some money to somebody with an Olds.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be some kind of mid-60s 442 or 4-speed car or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly, but I haven't been able to document it. So I want to sell it, but I'd like to be as inclusive as I can with the listing. And but I got that sitting home too, and it's another one. Like you said, you just kind of collect this stuff. But
I love that weird accessory stuff that was bolted on dashes and stuff. I keep all that stuff if I can find it.
We got to keep in touch with you. I had a Chevelle years ago, and it had the woman I guess had bought as an accessory. It's the aluminum clamshell ashtray that sat on top of the dash.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got a V on it. I don't know why, for Viceroy. I don't know. But I saved that, too. I'm like, I don't even smoke anymore. Well, cigars. But I'm like, it's just a cool accessory. Somebody may want that.
Maybe that goes the V that used to be on the 55 to 57s,
I don't know. This was on a 65 Chevelle that I picked up years ago and flipped. So I don't know. Yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, back in the days, you get so much stuff from the dealer and accessory catalogs. And you know what? Some stuff you could even get from the auto parts stores. And I've had people tell me this stuff's original in their car. I'm like, how long have you owned your car? They're like, 20 years. I'm like, well, the car was around longer than you've owned it. So,
J.C. Whitney.
Yeah,
exactly.
J.C. Whitney sold a ton of stuff back in the day, and everybody bought. I mean, I had a Whitney catalog when I was in high school. It was like before Hemmings, that was the holy grail.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And some of that stuff was actually kind of quality in its own way.
Yes.
And it looked like it belonged. Like, even just going to, like, the auto parts stores, like we used to have the Aid store, what was it, R&S?
Strauss.
Yeah, and then, like, some of the stuff was crap in the package, and there was other stuff that looked like it belonged in your car.
And they sold Count Custom.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, cool stuff. All right, George, let's we got to wrap this up. We got to move on to some other stuff. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and Jamco Parts, how they can find your stuff and where they can reach you.
Well, the easiest way would be to through our website, which would actually be jamcoparts.com. You could always email me also at jlopez@jamcoparts if you have any questions. And I'm going to get a little bit embarrassed here. I'm going to give you the phone number, but I have to look it up. Give me a second.
All right. And what I'll do is... when we redo our website, I will get a link up there to Jamco Parts on the website.
You got a toll-free number, right? 877-549-9551. Does that sound familiar?
There you go. You just saved me. That's our toll-free number.
No problem. Yeah, right there on the top of the website.
Beautiful.
So, that'd be the best way to reach us. If you guys have any questions, feel free to give us a call. And even if you like we have our catalog out, if you need a catalog, give us a call. We'll mail one out to you. And visit us on the website for anything else.
I will send you an email with an address. So you can send me out a couple of those catalogs for Joe and I, and then we'll pass the word. Very good.
Hey, that sounds great, Ray. No problem.
Okay, George, thanks a lot, buddy. We'll hope to see you soon, maybe back on Plane and Traffic, and we'll certainly get you back on here if you have new products or things you want to talk about. Don't feel bashful about reaching out to me, because this is what we do.
No problem,
Heck
man.
yeah.
That sounds great.
All right, George.
All right, guys. You have a good one.
Thanks, man.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
Good
Bye.
to talk.